If the NATO allied forces dare to act tough against the combatant Russian nation, do you know what will happen? All are ready to fight. Just now, NATO helicopters are scheduled to land at Slatina Airport in Kosovo, but as a combatant nation, the Russian army is not used to this. Armored vehicles moved very quickly, then added 2 more smoke bombs. The Russian army armored vehicles aimed anti-aircraft guns at the helicopter hovering above, under the fierce response of the warring nation. Seeing that, the NATO helicopter immediately left, but soon after, some NATO soldiers blocked the Russian army convoy, forcing the Russian army to leave the airport. But the Russians, after saluting the NATO officers, did not want to say anything more. The NATO officer arrogantly said, "Everyone is ready to fight." Seeing this, the Russian officer could only ask for instructions from superiors. The result received was the evacuation order. This is the real scene that happened on the Kosovo battlefield. The NATO allied forces, in 1999, without the consent of the United Nations, on the major bombing in Yugoslavia, the consequences left hundreds of thousands of civilians homeless. In order to enter Kosovo smoothly, NATO had sent out hundreds of terrorists. At this time, Alpha Group only had 8 people, preparing to seize Slatina Airport, but for hundreds of terrorists, taking care of a team of just 8 was simply easy as turning one's hand. The team leader immediately reported the situation to the Russian Ministry of Defense. After hearing the news, the Russian Ministry of Defense immediately dispatched a Marine regiment to assist, but they still had to hold on until the Marines arrived, meaning they had to hold out for at least 12 hours. Left with no choice, the team leader had to deploy combat. The members in the front only had the sole option of burying bombs at the airport. The remaining members moved aircraft fuel tanks, arranged in designated locations, then set off the explosions. Snipers were tasked with occupying high command positions. After everything was neatly arranged, suddenly the sniper discovered a boy who had entered their control area. The boy looked around with eyes as sharp as blades. His eyes showed malicious intent. Then he went to an open field and stopped. Facing the sniper, he made a tense throat-slitting gesture. Then he continued riding his bike out of the airport. And this was also the most despicable way on the battlefield. They knew the Russian army would never shoot innocent and pitiful children, but this could be used to check the military situation, not only using children to detect mines, but also to uncover the enemy's situation. The Russian army was truly helpless when faced with this approach. After the boy left, under the sunset, 2 team members knelt down and said their final farewells. Because they knew this battle would surely be a fight to the death. Soon the sniper discovered the truck carrying the terrorists was approaching. The whole team quickly got into battle positions. At this time, the truck behind crashed straight into the fence. The sniper immediately reported to the team leader. They prepared to split into 2 groups to deploy activities. After the terrorists arrived at the site, all quickly pulled out guns and jumped out of the car. Some people, even to arouse more excitement, proactively inhaled some flour. Then they started attacking inside the airport. When they stepped on the signal flares, the battle between 8 people and 500 began. First, the outer team members detonated mines while blowing up the enemy's truck, then fired missiles. In an instant, the night sky was filled with the cries of the terrorists. On the other side, Beria had set up a common PKM machine gun. When the terrorists didn't even have time to jump out of the car, the 7.62mm bullets flew straight into the flustered terrorists who were resisting. Before they could raise their guns, they were immediately taken down. At the same time, the enemy on the other side also started attacking, but unexpectedly, this area had become their deadly minefield. Not going very far, the front team members began detonating mines. And then all the terrorists were engulfed by the raging flames. The lucky ones who didn't get hit by the bombs also found it hard to escape the sniper's death zone. Soon the first terrorist attack was defeated. The entire airport suddenly became quiet. But they didn't know the second enemy attack was about to begin. At that moment, the terrorist leader drove to attract the squad's firepower. Attack! The second terrorist attack targeted the station. The members of the group who were expected to resist were blasted away by the enemy's RPG. The sniper reacted very quickly, taking out the enemy sniper with just 1 shot. At this time, the enemy was about to occupy the station. Seeing this, the team leader immediately ordered all personnel, redirected the gun barrels to provide support. Andrey even fired the heavy Deska machine gun non-stop towards the enemy. Moreover, with large 12.7 by 108mm bullets. But under the fierce attack, 3 terrorists still penetrated the defense line. But just as they reached the the door. Team members immediately detonated pre-planted bombs. After the explosion, the airport returned to calm in the dark night, but what they never expected was the silence of the airport. Now was the final silence. The terrorists had deployed 4 mortars. Do you hear anything? Mortars. Oh Lord. After the bombing, a terrorist took the opportunity to break into the airport, using the shelter to observe the surroundings, then started setting up missiles. At this time, a team member just came down from the station. A team member ignored Andrey's restraint, madly rushed towards the wounded teammate, but unexpectedly, however, the sniper at this time still aimed at the enemy, without knowing that death was approaching. Right at this moment, the team leader suddenly reminded. The sniper immediately turned the gun, but it was too late. Next, the terrorists again began deploying the second round of bombings, determined to bury the Russian soldiers in Kosovo. But they had not seriously assessed the combatant nation's title. In order to break the terrorists' mortar positions, ignored the team leader's restraint, drove the oil truck alone into the enemy's mortar positions. Quick, everyone fire. After the mortar positions were blown up, the sky also gradually brightened, and this battle continued. The squad now had very little ammunition. Andrey was also shot while running to the right side. Right after that, a team member found a missile in the warehouse, picked it up and stepped to the door, fought back against the terrorist leader who was firing non-stop. After the explosion, Bill was extremely angry, preparing to launch the final attack, determined to fight with the spirit that if one side cracks, the other side breaks. Just then, the team leader suddenly got in the car and rushed out. The remaining team members immediately provided cover fire. After the team leader reached Andrey's spot, he tried to lift Andrey up and put him in the car, then quickly threw grenades towards the enemy, and got in the car with everyone, ran into the defensive tower that was easy to defend but hard to attack. A team member who was not rescued in time was shot in the head by Bill. Another teammate was blasted to the other side. Witnessing his teammate being shot, he could do nothing. However, this person would later make Bill suffer a fate worse than death. At this time, the team leader had rescued the remaining team member, but he had pointed the gun at his own teammate because all the ammunition they had at this time was also the last remaining pistol bullets, and this was also what they had agreed upon beforehand. The last bullet would be for themselves. But when the team leader gripped the gun trigger, the terrorists outside at this time retreated one after another. It seemed they had seen something extremely frightening. No matter how much Bill shouted, the remaining terrorists still hurriedly ran away. At this time, his teammate also timely stopped the team leader. Stay alert. Then looked out the window. The mighty Russian army had arrived. The remaining teammates now suddenly breathed a sigh of relief. Bill also hurriedly got in the car and prepared to flee, but ultimately still had to meet a bitter end.